Hi, I am Pastor Rich Warnecke from Christ Lutheran Church in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and welcome to our Friday devotion. How good at you in keeping a promise? I think all of us have to admit that we do our best when we make promises to try and keep them, unless we're trying to deceive someone or possibly lying in the process to gain an advantage. But most of the time, when we make promises, we want to keep them because those promises are made to family or to friends, to loved ones, people with whom we trust and who trust us. And yet there are times we have to go back and apologize and say, I wasn't able to keep my promise. I ran out of time. I didn't have the ability. I overestimated how much I could do. And that becomes really hard because sometimes we break trust that way, and it's hard to reestablish that. God has no problem making promises, and when God makes a promise, he always keeps it. We think of Abraham when he promised that Abraham at 75 years old, that one day Sarah at 65 would have a child. And when Abraham was 100 and Sarah was 90, he kept that promise. And they had a son, Isaac. And the letter writer to the Hebrews reminds us that Abraham never flinched in trusting that when God makes a promise, he keeps it. He was fully persuaded that God has the power to do what he promises. Are we? Are we fully persuaded that God has the power to do what he promises when it comes to our salvation, when it comes to our forgiveness, when it comes to we being part of his family, when it comes to his constant care, how he provides for us, when it comes to one day delivering us home to heaven and causing everything to work out for the good of those who put their trust in him, Romans 8:28. Oh Lord, help us trust you because, as Paul writes in Romans, if you took care of our sin, you can take care of everything else. We see that God, when he makes a promise, always keeps it. In Genesis chapter 47, verses 11 and 12, here it was Joseph, that son that the rest of his brothers, the sons of Jacob, when they sold him to get rid of him because he was the favorite of their father and they envied him so much, it was God who provided for Joseph, kept him safe, delivered him finally into the hands of Pharaoh, and rose him to extreme power, the second in command in Pharaoh's kingdom. He earned Pharaoh's trust. So when he comes and asks Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, that his brothers, his father, and his family, and all of his possessions were coming, would he be able to find a place for them so that they could be taken care of? Pharaoh said, yeah, no problem, because I trust you. It was God, through Joseph, who kept his promise. And he continues to keep his promise to us today because he reminds us we're forgiven. Jesus has paid our debt, and one day he's coming to take us home. Oh, Lord, may we live our lives to give you praise and glory, because when you make a promise, you keep it, and help us trust that forever. This is what Moses writes. Again, Genesis 47, 11 and 12. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers in Egypt and gave them property in the best part of the land, the district of Ramses, as Pharaoh directed. Joseph also provided his father and his brothers and all his father's household with food, according to the number of their children. May we trust in our Lord forever, because when he makes a promise, he keeps it, and we are fully persuaded of that. With God's help. Until next time.